Lonesome Report, January 2nd, 2025. I'm going to start saying the date on here like a real professional.
Be a good
Um,
idea.
I'm Jim Mundorf, Southwest Iowa. Shad Sullivan.
I'm at the headwaters of Bitter Creek, Archer County, North Texas, on this beautiful sunny day, getting ready for a storm to come in.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
And I think we're back on YouTube. I'm going to try and put this on there. So you can
Oh,
listen to
great.
this Apple, Spotify, YouTube, Rumble, Twitter. Big thanks to YouTube for suspending us because now we put it on Rumble and Twitter. And we got surprisingly a lot of people watching. So thanks a lot to everyone who has ever who shared this. So we got I think close to 1,000 people watching on Rumble
That's awesome.
where we just started an account. So that's all just from people that follow us. So
That's great.
and the podcast people listening, I think is increasing every episode. Everything just seems to keep growing. So thanks to everybody. And if you want to support what we're doing, go to lonesomelands.com and click on subscribe where you'll find a number of options. Um,
Thank you, Americans.
and Chad is using his microphone. That sounded great. Uh, um, and so we just get together and talk about what's going on in the world and agriculture once a week and what's going on. It seems like so it's just we went through the holidays. I wanted to put a whole timeline of this. So last time we talked about this, what was it? Transparency Act?
The Corporate
Corporate
Transparency Act.
Transparency Act. So you do not have to sign up. Just update. You do not have to
Yep.
sign up now,
That's the
right?
latest update is we do not have to sign up. The same um, Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals that said you do have to sign up after the injunction was filed turned around 3 days later in the middle of the night and said, "You don't have to sign up."
Okay.
So
I
my
feel like we.
wife calls me from her office and says, "Do you think you should sign up just in case?" And I said, "Not only no, but hell no. Do not sign us up for that. We'll do it on our time and our terms, and it's not going to go through anyway." So there you go.
Yeah, we've spent so much stupid time on that thing.
Yeah, it's dumb.
Let's not talk about it anymore because we don't have to do it unless it comes back up. But since it is the new year and it is kind of, well, I felt I was going through the news and it seems like, well, it seems like a slow news except for the terrorist attack. I mean, everybody's focusing on that, but there is a ton of stuff in the news. Um, because like this one guy, Tim Burchett, I don't even know where he's from. He's a congressman from a southern state. And he had a video out this morning talking about what this Sean Ryan podcast has always talked about, that the U.S. taxpayer, the U.S. government is giving $40 million to the Taliban every week. Have you heard that?
I have.
How is that not? And then, so then I go through all the headlines for this morning and it's like not even.
How is that not treason?
And he
That what
put
they're
there's a bill to stop it and it like
good.
doesn't go forward. How can that not go forward?
Well,
I don't get it.
I think they're using that money as an excuse to make sure who are the people under the regime, the Taliban regime? What are they called?
I mean, there's Al Qaeda, there's ISIS, there's
No, 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 no. They're citizens, you
Hamas.
know, under there. I don't know. I think it's supposed to be for human aid, but it's treason if you ask me.
Yeah.
That's why
So
nobody's
there's
asking.
another. Yeah. And that's what I saw a number of people put up complete and total treason. But then, these people that have, did you see the Cybertruck blow up outside
I
Trump Palace?
did.
That's
Yeah, I
pretty.
did.
I mean, that's one that we can laugh about because the guy was like, apparently he was like, screw Elon Musk, I'm gonna blow this Cybertruck up. And the Cybertruck is bulletproof, so the bomb went straight up in the air. It said it didn't even break the windows on the Trump Tower. Did you see how close it
No,
was?
it did. It didn't. And I just before you and I come on, a little ticker tape on my newsreel on my phone said that the guy sitting in that truck had a gunshot wound to his head.
There was a guy in it? I didn't know there was somebody in it.
Yeah, he was the only one killed. It hurt seven other people, just minor injuries, but it killed the guy in the truck. And it just said, They just said he had a gunshot wound to the head. But what are we supposed to believe from the FBI and the
Yeah, that's
hierarchy of
true.
law enforcement? I don't believe a thing anymore.
And both these guys are ex-military, which is weird.
And both of them were in the same
Yeah.
squadron, maybe
Yeah, it's
in the
something.
military.
They were both connected somehow. But then,
Yeah.
and now everybody's talking about illegal immigration, but both these guys were U.S. citizens and
Yeah,
military.
but they said
I mean,
the truck had been recorded as crossing the border just a few days ago. The truck that
the
guy used in
oh,
New
the
Orleans.
Texas one or the
Yeah,
New Orleans one.
the New Orleans one.
Yeah. So, and that's the thing, like, is Al Qaeda that they're coming over and brainwashing or indoctrinating ex-military guys to carry out this stuff? I don't know. It's crazy stuff happening
Absolutely,
in the
they are.
world.
Kind of
Apparently.
the terrorists are all here. I mean, the terrorists are here. All they have to do is put their action into play. I mean,
Yeah.
what do we expect? We've had open borders for 4 years. You can walk across. I know you and I both know ranchers on the southern border that they can't do anything about the people crossing their ranches.
Right.
What do we expect?
Well, have you seen this Sean Ryan who has a podcast? He's an ex-military guy. I know Brett Kenzie and Eric Groper got their they shout out to those guys, our weekly mention of Eric Groper. Um, but they got me listening to it. And he's had all kinds of people on saying that if you want to scare yourself to death, go and listen to his people because they said like an October 7th type of house to house. Like the one lady said there's over 1,000 Al Qaeda members here, they believe. And if they did that in any big city, it would be way worse, I think, than what happened in Israel. I don't know. Although I don't know. I don't know how you could get worse than what they did over there, but
Well, I'll just tell you this. I guess you've seen since the deal in New Orleans that the, I mean, how do I say this without getting in trouble? Um, the the people who support the is it the people in Gaza are rioting all over the nation. I mean, this is a mess. And have you seen in Denver what's happened this week? I mean,
no, what happened?
well, earlier in the summer, the refugees took over a couple apartment
Oh yeah, yeah.
complexes.
Aurora.
Well, now I don't know if you've ever been in those third world countries, but if you're in a car in your third world country and you drive up to a stoplight, there's people there that want to wash your windows, and they force themselves upon washing your windows on your car, and then they force you to pay them. Well, that's exactly what's happening in Denver right now. And there was a freaking fight like you can't believe in the middle of the street because this guy said, I'm not paying, this American said, I'm not paying you guys to wash my windows. And they started beating on his car and broke his, he got out and beat the crap out of him. And then he sped off. But what else do we expect when we've allowed these people who aren't used to being guided by law to come in against the law and take over a nation? It's all designed, and I'm sorry, you and I may not agree on this, but this is designed by the Obama Biden administration corruption to destroy America. And we're not, I say 2025 is the year we're not going to let it happen. It's time to put a stop to it, Jim.
Yeah. I think a lot of people's eyes have opened because I think a few years ago, I mean, I can remember being like, well, Democrats and Republicans, they just disagree on certain issues and things like that. But if you really are looking at things, and I feel like Elon Musk and people like that, they're if you see how they've kind of changed their attitude, like it's becoming obvious. Like they want chaos. How can you just allow all these people in and not expect chaos? Like that's what they want. But I don't know. I don't want to get too
Totally
political,
agree.
but I did see though
Yeah.
there's a clip going around, which it's been going around for a little while. There's a dairy farmer in South Dakota who says Americans are all going to starve if we deport all our illegal immigrants. Have you seen that?
I saw a bit of it.
And
I didn't
apparently he's
pursue
like
it.
Kristi Noem's neighbor. That was also mentioned at some point. Um, but I don't know. What do you think about that? Like, do you know any illegal immigrants that are working on
Yeah,
ranches
I
or?
do. And they're good people.
Yeah.
But they have to come legally. We have to abide by the law. They have to abide by the same laws.
Right.
I
And
mean,
I
we're
don't
not going to.
think, and that's the whole thing about, well, over the Christmas break, all this H-1B,
Yeah.
debate gets
What was
started,
that?
which is so stupid because, like, why are we even talking about this? How about let's get rid of the felons, the convicted felons, and the people in the prisons and all that? Let's complain about H-1B visas or whatever that even is. When we get to where we get all the convicts out of the country. And yeah, I mean, I know illegal immigrants that worked on my house when I was building the house and stuff. And yeah, they were good guys, good family people. I don't really see them getting deported. Do you?
I don't
But
know.
like what
I
I
don't know.
hate, so there's this, what I didn't like seeing is there's a guy in Missouri who put forward legislation to like give a reward for whistleblowers or turning in illegal immigrants. Did you see that?
Oh my goodness. That sounds like COVID.
Yeah, I know. It's it sounds like a terrible idea. I mean, how about, we start with the criminals, and if we can even do that,
Remember
let's
back in
fight
the
about
day,
where we go next after all the criminals are out of here.
remember back in the day when they came across the border because they wanted a better life?
Yeah. Well, I
And
was
the
reading.
majority of them are still like that. But the problem is when it goes unvetted, you have people from, 170 different countries coming across the border unchecked, not only to take advantage of our wonderful giving financial system to giving, um, but also to help destroy the very principles that they don't like, that they weren't raised in, and that's freedom and liberty. People hate freedom if they've never experienced it, and that's a problem, Jim. I'm all for legal immigration. I'm all for we're not, you and I are not going to go to their countries and without we might go to their country, but if we don't abide by their rules, we're not going to be in their country long.
Yeah, and I was reading, so my kids are all into all kinds of history stuff, and I was reading about Ellis Island, and I'm gonna Google this right now. What I read was the total immigrants came through Ellis Island the whole time Ellis Island was open, because everybody talks about we're all immigrants on it, was 12 million people, which that is what came through this past year
And
illegally
every one
through
of
the
those
border.
people were documented
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thoroughly.
thoroughly.
I mean, and some of them were turned away if they were sick. 12 million immigrants. I just Googled it up. Between 1892 and 1954, more than 12 million immigrants passed through U.S. immigration ports at Ellis Island. Crazy. And that's so if you want to bring up, oh, we're all immigrants, I mean, we had 12 million through 1 year. That was between 1892 and 1954. Went through Ellis, the main port of immigration.
How many
So
have we had in four
how
years? Google it.
Well, I thought it was in the past year there was 12 million. So what are we
We're
looking
going to
at?
find out in the 4 years that it's over 22 million.
2020 to 2024, if I just Google that.
My
Uh,
Border Patrol agent friend
well,
told
yeah, he
me.
probably has a better idea
Oh yeah,
than,
he said when they say 10 million, he said, Chad, it's over 22 million.
yeah, in 4 years.
Yes.
So double the amount. Okay, 11 million unauthorized border encounters between October 2019 and June 2024. So there you go. The same, a similar amount as what happened between 1892 and 1954 while Ellis Island was open. So I knew a lady, my wife's grandma came through Ellis Island from Greece. It was pretty cool. She had cool, I mean, I went to talk to her. The story I remember is someone handed her a banana. I think it was on the train or something. She worked in the packing plant in Sioux City, and she could never really speak very good English, but she would tell a story about, I think it was a banana or maybe an orange, and she took a bite out of it. Never seen,
She
she
never
told her it
saw
was
one.
food and she'd never seen it before. She's like, okay. So she started eating it. They were like, you got to peel it first. But she lived in Greece up in like the mountains. They had to take donkeys and stuff. And I think the only way to get there still is a donkey. That's
Wow.
what I've been told. But
That's
to
amazing.
where she grew up, yeah, dirt sheep farmer,
Yeah.
olive olive farmer, I think, is on
Wow.
Crete. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool stories coming out there, but not very
Oh
good
yeah.
stories coming out of the new immigration. Um,
Whew. Wow.
so I guess 2024 wrapping up.
Yeah.
What do you think? What do you think of as what do you think we'll remember 2024 as? Because this is what I was thinking about today when before we were starting this for agriculture.
Are you asking me that now?
Yeah, I should ask you before, but see what I was
Listen.
thinking is it's like an awakening. I feel like it's an awakening for every the whole country, but
Yeah.
really for this sustainability movement that has we've just been beat over the head years and years and years with. The
Yeah.
amount of change we've had in the last year, the amount of pushback we've had over the last year. Because I can
Yes.
remember around this time last year, I was writing a speech for that thing in Rapid City, and I didn't know. I was like, "Is this going to get pulled off of YouTube?" I don't know if people are going to be what it was, but and it was lies agreed upon, where I just talked about how the whole USDA spent $3 billion on this climate smart commodity program and how agriculture has agreed upon this lie of
Yes.
um, climate change, really.
And let me tell you, that should have that if there were any awards given out, that title, period, is the title of the year. The lies agreed upon.
Well, to me,
And
I feel like and I'm not saying this is what woke anybody up, but
no, it's
just,
part of it.
well, I just didn't know how the response would be. And the response was overwhelmingly positive, and people are like, yeah, we are sick of this stuff. Um, I was just kind of putting out thoughts I think that a ton of people in agriculture had. And And if you go through it and, right before the election, we had two, what I think of is we got two, the president who got elected says the climate change hoax. He talks about the climate change hoax.
Yeah.
And we had both the president and the vice president talk about the windmill scam and different things like that. And so going forward, I feel like we have such an opportunity to really just base agriculture back on the truth of
So,
like growing things and
yeah.
get it away from this money grab of government contracts through the
Yes.
sustainability movement and all that. And I don't think we're awake. I mean, we're still, they're still building they're still putting up windmills and there's like we just looked at this thing that Andrea Hutchinson sent us. What was that called?
I didn't.
Agrivolt Agrivoltics, something
Oh,
like that,
agripolitics. Yeah.
which is being able to farm underneath solar panels.
Yeah.
Um, which there's a lot of people who are into. Like if they can raise sheep under solar panels, they'd be all about it. But it's like, well, you know what? What makes the most? We have these giant parking lots. How about we just put solar panels above them? Like, how about on top of buildings? If you want to have solar panels everywhere, you can't help but you can't even talk about it without laughing. It all
Well,
does
you know,
seem ridiculous.
I've been at this a long time, Jim, and the Lord gave me a really, really great journey in 2024. And obviously, I was I was basically kicked into the spotlight, and I look back on all the great interviews and all the people I've met over the year, and one of the most pleasurable things that I got to experience, of course, there was, the Glenn Beck interview, the relationship with Lara Logan, building that relationship. But the greatest pleasure I had was going back and watching me on the Laura Ingraham show. And at the very bottom in the TikTok or the ticker tape at the bottom, it said, sustainability is production and consumption control. They titled it that. And I thought, what a great message to the American people of the truth, and that they are recognizing that. And it wasn't by coincidence or something very nefarious that I was, you know, forced into those interviews. I mean, that those interviews happened because God wanted them to happen. And and so that to me was a great awakening to the American people, and especially some producers, the large portion of the producers, and a lot of them don't want to admit it. But the word sustainable development is rapidly leaving our mouths, our thoughts. And I just saw an interview yesterday with um, a, I think he was an ag professor at some major university. And he says, we're tired of the talk of sustainability and we're going to change it to regenerative and change. Those are the two words we're going to use now, regenerative and change. And I've been pushing and like crazy all fall during the election cycle to say, hey, let's let's find a balance. If you want to be a regenerative agriculturalist, do it. If you want to be a regular rancher like me, do it. I think I am regenerative. That's why we're still here. But as you said, the awakening of the American people in agriculture, but also the awakening of those people who have realized since COVID that their food supply is endangered when it is centralized. And, the pushing out of diseases and the threatening of don't go gather with your friends, which is constitutionally protected, has resonated with the American consumer as well. And so we have a movement that was started really early in 2024 that is gaining steam and momentum because the people spoke, they see the truth, and then the people spoke that they wanted change. And I think it's absolutely awesome. I
Yeah.
and I think we're going to see the change.
I also think if you want to predict 2025, we're going to see a major pushback against getting rid because there is so much money. There are so many people in agriculture who are cashing government checks and checks from these major corporations who have invested, who have their ESG departments that are still there. Um,
There's no doubt that they're going to double down. The
yeah,
anti-meat rhetoric is ramping up, but at the same time, I see the pro-meat rhetoric amping up greater. I mean,
yeah,
you are right. I mean, they're going to double down on us, but I don't think you can lie. I think the American people have been lied to for so long. They're done. They don't want any more of it. And that may be the way that we let the markets sort it out. Truthfully, I mean, we're talking about carbon markets. Let the carbon markets sort themselves out. If people want to put solar panels on their ranches, vast ranches, let it work. If it happens, it'll work. If it doesn't, it won't.
right. But we got to get the government out of, I
We
mean,
have
the subsidies, the
we have to
paybacks,
reduce
the
the size of
kickbacks.
government.
I can remember when T. Boone Pickens, this was years ago, he was on like a Nightline show or whatever, and he was taking his private jet. If you don't know T. Boone Pickens, he's a oil guy, right? Did he make his money
Yep.
in oil?
Yep.
And there's T. Boone Pickens Stadium in Oklahoma State. He made all his money in oil and gas, and then he went around the country, flew his private jet all around the country promoting these windmill deals. And I can remember they talked about the senators who had invested, and one of them was Nancy Pelosi.
Yeah.
And you've seen like if you've seen the Pelosi tracker and all that kind of stuff, I think her stock picks are like up 50 or 60% over the year. Like it's just she's just a scam artist with what she does as far as investing or her family members do with investing or whatever. But I mean that's what we got to get to. But we're getting to the truth of all of that stuff. That's the thing.
Yes.
Like this year, and it's not just agriculture, but it's everything. Like you can't just run these scams anymore where you don't think, we can just sweep everything under the rug. And it's like the people that are running them still think you can,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? And they still think you can do this and nobody's going to notice. But I think, the winds at our back as far as getting the truth out there. And that's really the goal of Lonesome Lands. And it's awesome to see that, um, you know, people are putting way more, you know,
Trust.
weight behind the people who are telling the truth than, your everyday, your farm journal who has a sustainability article every other day when you know they've already got their $40 million grant from the government to push that crap. And more people are learning about that. And that's to me what I think if you look back on 2024, like this is the beginning of it. And I think it's just gonna snowball as far as getting the truth out there. It's just gonna snowball. And that's our
Yeah,
hope for this deal. And I think
absolutely.
it's gone great. And the main thing is thanking everybody for paying attention and following along. And I'm not good at getting back to emails or messages and stuff like that. And if you've ever emailed or messaged and I didn't get back to you, I'm sorry about that. But um, that's the other thing. If I can get somebody as we keep growing, hopefully we can get some help on those fronts. But my main goal has been getting the content out there, and so and thanks to Shad really for lighting a fire on me for this deal because we have been consistent. Even kicked off YouTube, we still put a show out once a week, except for that 1 week during harvest. So
Yeah, well, I mean, it's we've gotten so much good feedback, even I have, about it. And the one gentleman, what was his name that sent us a message the other day, and he says, "You're keep it up, you're making a difference." And God,
George Walker,
it was George Walker.
I remember because
Somebody tells me you're making a difference. I take that with such humility and such great responsibility all at the same
yeah, I
time.
know little messages like that. Even I know I've probably gotten some that I haven't got back to, but even like comments on YouTube, all that kind of stuff. It just
Yeah.
helps. It helps as you make because you're always kind of, are we, should we be doing this? Should I be spending my
Exactly.
time doing this? It's just a constant when you're starting something out like this. And because of all that feedback, that's why we're still doing it. So, and George Walker, one of the first and I think bigger supporters of what I've been doing.
Really, really awesome.
Subscriber. So
Yeah.
thanks to George.
Thank you,
And
George.
I'll
Thank you very
always
much.
remember his name because my great grandpa was named George Walker Mundorf. So.
Wow.
GW. They called him GW. He
Good
was one.
name.
Yeah.
George Walker is a noble name.
Yeah. He's getting talked about a lot. He's probably loving this.
Yeah, he is.
Um, but to go on with that, like awakening in the truth, you mentioned something last time, and I'll bring it up. Maybe you don't want to talk about it. But the cattle market over the past year has been crazy. And we keep hearing over and over, we got the smallest cattle herd since 1968. Is that what it was?
Yeah.
72 years or something like that?
It's what the reports say.
Right. And you're starting to question it because of how things are shaking out. Like we keep
I've been
seeing cattle
questioning
on
it.
feed is down 1 or 2%. And then,
Oh, it was up. It was up 1%.
in the last report, it was up from last year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
And then we have the sale barns still seem to be having pretty big numbers coming through.
yeah.
So what do you think the goal of of not having accurate numbers? Do you think they're just
Well,
off because they're incompetent? Or is this,
let well,
let's go
there's
down
a
the
lot
conspiracy rabbit
of
hole.
let me clarify by saying I'm not saying that it's a conspiracy that they're lying about the numbers. I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying for the last 2.5 years, they have told us that we have the lowest numbers in history. And that has had a reflection on cash cattle prices. No doubt. We are at the highest levels in history. I hedged cattle last year higher than I ever have. I could hedge them today $20 higher than I did last year. That's a big deal. It's wonderful. It's an awesome position to be in. What I question is for the last 6 to 8 months, they've said, man, we are running out of cattle. And yet the smallest sale barns that I know near me, several of them, have run more cattle through every week than they normally did when we weren't low on numbers. You have Oklahoma City consistent 10 to 12,000. You had uh, Saint not St. Joe, but Joplin, Missouri set records record amount of cattle coming through. You have Fallon, Nevada, tens of thousands. La Junta, Colorado, Torrington, Wyoming, everybody across the northern tier in South Dakota. I'm saying that these numbers aren't slowing down like they should be. Now, here's what we can think. Number one, maybe maybe prices are so good that we're trading these cattle amongst each other. That could be a possibility. Number two, maybe the numbers really aren't as low as they say they are. Um, that could truthfully be it. The cattle on feed reports, just call them neutral. They've all been pretty neutral, really. Um, but there's something, is it the outside investors propping the prices up? It's going to fall one of these days. Let's enjoy it. Or um, is the reason that the sale barn numbers are so great is because these older and final generations of producers are saying, "Hey, I'm going to cash in while the prices are high, and I can get out on a high note." Is that the case? I don't know.
Yeah,
There's just
but
a lot to it, Jim.
yeah, you'd think if that was the case, you'd see kind of a lot of cows. Are we seeing a lot of cows?
Oh yeah, you've seen a lot of cows. I mean, you're going to have a
Yeah,
normal.
I mean I've seen the price of cows. It's crazy.
Yeah, but I mean, you're going to see the normal culling of the herds, a yearly culling of the
Right.
herd. That's normal. But I'm talking, when they're running at Wichita Falls, you know, 2,000 head a week. That's consistently. Same thing in Graham, Texas. I don't know. It just seems like probably something. When is it? Okay, here's the question. When is it going to slow down? When are we
Yeah.
going to run out of cattle? When are we truly
Which
going
I
to?
think numbers were, I think if you go back to last year, and I can remember like watching Feeder Flash and different things, they would talk about Oklahoma City being down and some of them, where they used to run all night and then they wouldn't have those big long runs. Um, but I don't know. That'd be interesting. Interesting question for Corbett
Well, I'll
because
just
he
tell
looks at
you,
those numbers every day. Um,
you have to throw, and I'm no financial expert. Listen, I'm not. I'm a buy low, sell high guy. It's got to be simple for me. But if you look at the investors in Chicago, you can kind of figure it out.
what does that mean? Explain that, like to people wondering
Well,
what you're
who
talking
are
about.
the funds? You got to watch the
Right.
funds. Yeah. And those people are not money losers, right? But there's going to come a day when we've got to pay the piper and this thing's going to fall. So they've got to prop it up as long as they can to get their money back for their investors, right?
Right. Um, yeah, and the people who are having a tough time, it's weird because, cow calf guys are making a lot of money. Do you think the herd is being built? Like if it is way down low, are they starting to rebuild?
Yes, they're starting to rebuild now. Um,
Because you're buying a lot of yearling heifers, young heifers,
correct.
and
Yeah.
is there fewer? Are they harder to get?
The reason they're harder to get, Jim, is because maybe not because of herd rebuilding, but because of cheaper per head price on a heifer calf compared to a steer calf.
Right.
So you can buy the heifer calf $40 back of the steer. And because the prices are so high and the inputs are so high, people are, we've talked about this today already. Prices of the cattle and inputs have increased exponentially, but the value of your chattel of what you have to put up to borrow money, your asset value has not increased. So in other words, my land hasn't increased in value at all, and I've got to borrow more money to run my operation. and that has a huge effect. So what I'm seeing in the yearling sector is that those guys who were staunch steer people are now moving over to heifers because of the cost per head. Now, some of those guys will breed those heifers, a
Yeah.
quality heifer, and put her back into the system, but we don't know what percentage of that will be. There's no way to tell.
And some of them probably don't
But
even know,
that
right?
yeah, they have to grow up first to see if they'll do that, right? But there's all kinds of scenarios going on in everybody's mind, right? And as of right now, I mean, I looked at my paperwork this morning again because I need to be ready to hedge when it's time. But um, my heifers make more money. Those light heifers will make more money even with um, 2/3 higher, longer basis than the steers will. Not a lot more, but they'll make more money.
Yeah. But like what would happen if you weren't able to hedge?
Well,
Like
I'll
if
tell
you were
you what
just buying
happened.
calves and you looked at fat
Yeah,
cattle price or you looked at where you sell them, how you buy them around 300 to 400 pounds
I buy them at 325 pounds,
and you sell them at what?
875,
Right.
850 to 875.
And if you looked at those two prices now, you would lose a ton of money, right?
No, not on the far out feeder board. No. If
Okay.
you hedged if you hedged right now, now they don't make much money. They might make 50,
No, but
$75 a
if you
head.
took like today's price,
Hmm.
800 pounder versus 3.5, and for what it costs for you to get them there, you know what I'm saying? Like without the board or anything else, if you're like, well, this is what they're going to be when you have to sell them, like the price has got to go up.
Price has to go up.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I'm just saying,
And
like
that's
if you
what
block out the futures and all that.
yeah. And that's what we call betting on the come, and you don't want to
Right.
do that. And I know by experience from 2015 when we had the quickest and harshest fall in history, I was not hedged, and I should have been hedged, but I got greedy. And my buddy in Mississippi, Danny Miller, a good friend of mine, says, "Shad, greed will lead to need." And I said, "I know, but I'm not in the business to break even." And I was at a break. I could have hedged at a break even point that year. And he said, "You better hedge." And I said, "I got to make a little money." And you know what? I went from a break even to losing $220,000.
Yeah.
You have to. This is so volatile. So in 1992, I was going to school at Laramie County Community College in Cheyenne, Wyoming. My ag economics professor said to me, or said to the whole class, if you're in business today, you will likely be in business forever. And I looked at him, and that gave me such confidence because I had just recently, with my family, my mom and dad, we went through the 80s and we lost land. We lost, we lost our minds. We lost, it was, the 80s were terrible. And that his comment gave me great clarity and great confidence. And so we go through there and I come back home many years later and I'm in the ranching business and I look in the mirror and I say, that guy couldn't have been for more wrong. Now it's literally year to year. Just because
Yeah.
you're in business today don't mean you will be next year.
And that's the worst thing anyone I think could say to any, especially a college class, like just because you start a business and you're going and you think, I mean, anybody who's ran a business for very long, even my, tiny operation, it's like one of the best motivators is fear of going broke, or
Yeah.
and it can hurt you too because you don't want to take risks or whatever. But I wouldn't even say motivator, just kind of keep you level headed of best case scenario, worst case scenario. You always got to weigh those out.
So yeah, certainly I learned a lot and I am no longer I used to be zero fear of a lot of risk. And now, and maybe it's an age thing, but now I'm like we have to protect what we've put together. We have to protect these investments. We got to figure out a way to do it. And I do, but uh, you know, I can remember my dad on his deathbed saying, "Boy, you're just going to get a living out of it. You're not going to get rich." And here I am. We're getting a living out of it, barely.
Well, this year, yeah, I
But
guess
you
you
better
never
protect
know.
it.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like going ahead, it's just a weird time to try to figure out where you're going to be in a year and where prices are going to be in a
Yeah.
year because who knows what'll happen. Um,
We are certainly into a time where it is hard to plan. You can't plan forward. We used to plan forward all the time, and now it's hard to plan forward.
but it does look like beef. I would say, I don't know, maybe it's the echo chambers I'm living in, but the beef demand, like the people are talking more and more about getting rid of processed foods and bringing in these whole
Yes.
real foods, and that just makes people want to eat steak more. And so it definitely
And
looks
Jim, I
promising.
think, yeah, what you just said is the reason people are still buying this high price beef in the store. What you just said. I mean,
Yeah,
I'm not going to call it a fad because it's really not a fad. It's truly about health. But people like Dr. Sean Baker and this carnivore diet and Dr. Malone and Brooke Miller, all these people that are really pushing this beef consumption lifestyle, they are truly kind of heroic because there had to be a tipping point, and I thought it would come a long time ago, a tipping point of where the beef was too high in the store because right beside it was chicken and pork, which is dirt cheap, right? And they would have to move over to another protein. But the simple fact is everybody loves beef more than chicken or pork. Brought to you by your checkoff dollar. And though the carnivore diet has, and maybe it's the Mayhaw movement as well, has helped keep that at bay, keep that tipping point at bay, maybe.
yeah, but where is it? That's the other thing with the small numbers and
I
the
don't
high
know. I can't
prices of
answer that
cattle.
because I thought it would have already come.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and the other thing about concentrated production when you have the biggest beef packers in the world are also selling chicken and pork, and beef all of a sudden becomes too expensive for them, or they're not making money as much money on beef, and they don't control the markets like they do the other ones. um then they'll push for the other ones, but who knows where we're going, I guess.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the
I'm
message
going
for
to promote
24.
the hell out of USA beef this year.
Yeah, me too. I think that's a big thing. Buy local, buy from your local
See
rancher.
that sign? Yeah,
USA
that
beef
sign right behind you, USA beef. Dang right.
pointed
That's what
right
we're
at
going to
you.
do. Yep.
Yeah, so that'll be fun. Keeping that ball rolling. And our calf podcast. You talked to Sean Baker, right? I had
We did.
how'd it go?
Super nice guy. Well, it went great. Dr. Sean Baker is oh my gosh, he's a doctor. He's smart. He's he's been on the carnivore diet, beef only carnivore diet for 8 years. This dude has zero fat on him. He has zero health issues. He is a stud, and he is really pushing USA beef. I mean, it's incredible what he's done. I wish I would have known him 8 years ago, but I think he's 58 years old. Solid muscle, weighs 250 pounds, I think. I follow him on social media, and he was pretty awesome to talk to.
Yeah. Check out our calf podcast. Well, you can go back. I went back and listened, not recently, but a while back. You can listen to him on Joe Rogan, and it was years ago. And it's what's really interesting
Yeah.
is they start talking about the medical or like the health industry, and
Yes.
this was before COVID, and so they're bringing things up, and then if you look back and you listen to it, it's like, oh, that's interesting for him to talk about. Um, but yeah, he goes on Rogan twice, and then he's able to get on to the RCAF podcast.
Yeah.
Right.
Super nice guy.
Yeah. Did anything surprising come out of there?
Um, no, not I mean, not for me, it wasn't surprising, but I bet there's a lot of
Yeah.
surprising stuff for the
Did he talk?
listener.
Did he get into the checkoff? Did he talk about his issues
Yeah,
with
we
check?
talked a little bit about the checkoff. I think his biggest deal is he couldn't understand. He didn't understand. really the captured idea of the beef checkoff, right?
That's
So,
it's
I
the
mean,
hardest thing to explain to people
it
because
is.
even on like I just did the video with independent cattlemen of Texas. And people are commenting on the video like, "Wait, you guys have to pay into something you have no control of?"
Right,
Like they just can't wrap their head around it. And
right.
especially when you get into like cattle, the independent, rugged individual cowboy, and we all are really held hostage by this program. Yeah, and people just don't. I mean, I've spent a year trying to, more than a year, close to 2 years probably now, just trying to get people to understand it. And it's hard because it doesn't make sense. And so when you say bring up this program that makes no sense, people are probably, you know, are kind of like, ah, that can't be happening.
Well, I think what doesn't make even more sense is that it is totally untransparent. I mean, you can't find out anything about it. You ask through FOIA requests, they redact them. It is truly, truly. And listen, I'm a supporter of the beef checkoff. I think it's a good idea, but man, it's just so much that doesn't make sense that we need to know about it. So,
Let's be clear. You're a supporter of the beef checkoff program. You are, well, I don't want you to say you're a supporter of the beef checkoff in its current state,
no,
unless that's what you mean.
no, I do not. I say, and I will stand behind this. I love the idea of the research, education, and promotion aspect of the beef checkoff, and I'm willing to put $1 ahead that I capture myself into the beef checkoff a year. However, in its current state, and it's what my dad would call interesting conflicts or conflicts of interest, it needs to be broke down and rebuilt. And it needs to be run by a whole different schedule of people.
Yeah, that have
It
nothing
is
to do
corrupt.
with NCBA. Well, here's a question for you
Yes, sir.
because a lot of people would say, would you rather it continue as is or be shut down completely?
Shut it down.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it's doing more harm than good.
It has not helped us.
To me,
We
because I guess a certain podcast was sent to us this morning of 15 minutes with somebody, and they said they were promoting beef or American beef. If you support National Cattlemen's Beef Association, which is the association that runs the beef checkoff, you don't support American beef. They are actively lobbying in DC right now against the Prime Act. They're actively lobbying in DC right now against mandatory country of origin labeling. Those two things are the biggest promoters of American beef that we have as far as legislation. And we have an office in DC, so, you know, funded by the forced dollars out of cattlemen's checks that are actively lobbying against those things. So you cannot be a supporter of NCBA and be a promoter of American beef.
yes, AB.
I mean, as
Yeah.
a member.
No. No, you're right. Even my dad was never for it, and he called it taxation without representation. And the reason he did was because we couldn't even represent the American. We couldn't disparage. Who made those rules? Back when Ford and Chevy were uh, advertising against each other all the time, we couldn't say that our product was better. We can't say that our product is better than any other product in the world because we're disparaging other proteins.
Right.
And that's wrong on every level. But it is, yeah, it's just a mess.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm not calling out like, I mean, I guess I kind of am NCBA members, but I want people to know what their dollars are going toward. If you're sending out that membership check, your dollars are going towards
Well,
an organization that is working against you.
and I'm not here to disparage NCBA, Jim.
I am.
I can, but I'm sitting here saying we have to look at the facts and the fruits. And the fact is we have been paying into this system since 1985 or 86. I think it's 85. And we consume less beef than we did back then as consumers. We have fewer ranchers. We have less people on the land. We have thousands and thousands of fewer farmer feeders. And you tell me that that program is doing good for the American rancher? You kidding me?
Right.
It's an oxymoron.
And now we have a challenge ahead of us because prices are good and people are making money, and that's when they tend to not care if a
They
dollar's
get
coming out of their check,
lackadaisical.
or they'll, all these states that aren't charging $2 a head are gonna push for the $2 a head because people are starting to make money now, and so we got to
I
keep
knew a
the
guy in Texas who wanted to go $5 a head. Now, can you imagine in 19 if we went $5 per head and in
there's a Texan for you.
2015 if we had a 2015 scenario and you had a guy like me that lost $220,000 that year and I wasn't the only one. I'm just being transparent uh, on the amount of cattle that I ran and I'd have to come up with $13,000 on top of my loss of 220,000 to pay the beef checkoff.
I said that it's a Texan for you. Well, a lot of them don't. I mean, they don't. I don't know. Some of them guys down there don't need cattle, or they got a lot of cattle, and it seems like kind of a hobby to them. But anyway, um, moving on. Carnivore month. I did have that wrote down. So back to Sean Baker.
Yeah.
This is a carnivore
Yep.
month. Um, so start your carnivore diet.
I've been on the carnivore. I guess I
I
haven't been on the total carnivore. I've been on high protein
Yeah,
because
and
I
there
like
is like
carbs too.
a. I think there's a percentage. I've seen it break. I don't know if there's ever official rules or whatever, but there's like a percentage of. And I'm wondering like what my percentage, like if you're 95% beef or meat and eggs, and then there is a small percentage of other things you can eat, I think, but very small.
Nothing comes out of a chicken's butt.
You don't eat eggs? Oh my
But I
gosh.
eat a lot of beef. I'm probably we don't eat chicken here. We don't eat uh I myself only eat beef because we have beef all the time. We sell a lot of beef. And so, and my wife, believe it or not, if we go out and eat, my wife will eat chicken out in a restaurant, but we never have chicken in the home. And so I think if you're talking percentages, I'm at 75%, 75 to 80% beef. And then, like yesterday, I had black-eyed cow peas and cottage cheese.
I think everybody would probably be a little surprised that if we actually kept track of our diets and the percentages.
Yeah,
Um,
I think you're
it's
right.
like them vegans that say they're vegan, but it gets to be about 2 a.m. on a Saturday night and they're gobbling down cheeseburgers. Somebody takes a video of them. I like those
And
deals.
they're putting their lipstick on that came from the collagen of a cow.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, did you watch Murder in High Country? I think you put something up. I said last time we were going to talk about Murder in the High
I
Country.
did.
What'd you think?
Well, I need an ending.
Yeah,
I need an ending
it needs to
back.
be, well, she said, I don't know if it's a spoiler alert, but I think on my podcast she said it was the guy, and I think he's been arrested. But so
Oh,
just to clue people in, Keely Cavello, who's friend of the program, I guess, runs AmericanUnwon.com, and they put out this documentary, and it's on Real Clear Politics. I'll try to put a link up. What my thought was, and I think it's the same thing as everybody, is like it should have been like an hour show. I think it was when they first put it out, like they had an
yeah.
hour worth, but
Yeah.
I think this, I don't know how it worked. We'll have her, I'm sure we'll talk to her again sometime. But yeah, it ended
I
up
gotta
being like
give
20 minutes.
I gotta give kudos to Keely and her sister, man. They're courageous. Really
Yeah. Yeah.
courageous.
Going out in those. But
Yeah.
yeah, those pot grows, the video and stuff. But yeah, that's what I'm just wanting to see more and hear more about it. Um, but yeah, it's good. So everyone should check it out because, support support the people that are trying to
Yeah.
put the truth out there. And
And Keely is
if
a
you
super I'm sorry.
I was gonna say, if you haven't, follow along or heard what I've talked about, go back and listen to her podcast. But she talks a lot about these. There are illegal immigrants coming in and building gigantic marijuana grow farms in public forest and on public lands in California. And the
Yeah.
governor, of course, is doing nothing about it. And
Right.
local police and people are getting murdered. There was a story in that video of somebody laying dead out alongside the road, and there's
Yeah.
people being
They just
trafficked
left him
kind of
there.
and used like because they're bringing them over and saying we'll give you a passage, and then they bring them out to the wilderness and force them to work on these.
Yeah.
And they're using all kinds of herbicides and pesticides, killing all the wild, killing everything off, and just growing weed. But it's so isolated that they can just do that, I guess. So anyway, great. I thought it was really good. And yeah, that was the thing
No,
about I thought the production was I'm like, dang, how do you learn how to make videos like that? Suppose you go to college for 4 years and spend
they
too much
did really
time doing it.
good. And
It was really
yeah,
cool.
she's an awesome writer too. I mean, I've shared a lot of her stuff on Substack and but she's a lot younger. I don't know why I pictured her like my age, but she's just brand new. She's so young. And
Yeah.
I did not picture Northern California as vast as that was on that documentary. I don't know what I pictured Northern California as, but it wasn't that.
Yeah. Surprised you haven't been up there. I thought you ran cattle everywhere.
I've never been to California. I've
You've
never
never even been
been.
there?
No, I haven't.
I went to Disneyland when I was a kid. That was it. Knott's Berry
You want to
Farm.
hear you want to hear a good Disneyland story?
Yeah.
My mom and dad in 1977, my mom and dad bought my mom's family ranch. And of course, it had been homesteaded, back in the early turn of the century. And so, as with every homestead around there, there's lots of old buildings and there's nails everywhere from buildings that have been, dilapidated and gone into the ground and all that stuff. So when we moved over to that ranch, my dad says, "Now you kids, I'm going to give each one of you a 5-gallon bucket, and we're going to pick all these nails up around this homestead." And we each got a 5-gallon bucket, and we each picked up 5 gallons full of nails over the next year or two. And he said, "We're going to turn them nails into cash, and we're going to go to Disneyland in California." That was the thing to do back then. So we all got our buckets full and lined up, and 2025 come, and those buckets are still lined up in the garage, and we have yet to go to Disneyland.
Well, maybe take Beatty someday. Right? Or you've canceled Disney probably.
I'm not going to Disneyland.
I went to Disney. We took the kids to Disney World. We've been twice actually. And I don't know. I'm kind of a 6-year-old, so I enjoyed it. It's pretty cool. And they have like I'm a big Mark Twain guy. They have Tom Sawyer Island, so it's not all, I don't know. I liked it. But yeah, but I hate to see what they're doing. And, my goal with all this stuff, all these woke companies, it's like John Deere had their diversity, they went kind of crazy too about using pronouns and all that kind of stuff. My goal isn't to see these kind of companies. I don't want them to go, I want John Deere to be a great American company that supports American farmers and ranchers and all that kind of stuff. I don't want to just, it's like Bud Light, everybody wanted them to go broke. Well, how about we make the changes and I mean, I guess I don't know how you do that without boycotting and all that kind of stuff, but I just like to see the companies do the right things. I don't know how to get there, but
That's what I said yesterday. Somebody said that there was a vegan program in the USDA, and I said, "We're going to clean that house. Let's clean that house." Sometimes our houses need cleaned.
yeah, that does not surprise me. USDA is so big. Who knows what's going on in there? Nobody knows. Um, all right. I think that's it. Thank you. Here we go, 2025. But yeah, main thing. Thank you to everybody we started this in 2024, so that's our first year. Um,
We're
can't
going to do
wait to.
52 of these, Jim. We're going to do 52 of these this year.
That sounds like a lot, but can't wait. Can't wait.
Me too.
Thanks
Me
to
too.
everybody for following, everybody who's subscribed. I was gonna send out a Christmas present to everybody who's subscribed, but that kind of went. I'm gonna send something. If you've subscribed to Lonesome Lands, No matter what level you did, I'm sending something out at some point. But don't hold your breath because I'm not good at. I had Christmas set. I was gonna get these deals and I never did it. But it kind of comes and goes quick. Now I'll do it. I'll do it. Get organized. That's my thing for 2025. Be more organized.
Yes, sir.
What do you want to? You don't do resolutions. You don't even think about what I need to do better this year.
Well, I've lost from my very heaviest weight, I've lost 50 pounds.
Good grief. In the last
And
year,
in the last 6 months,
you've lost 50 pounds in 6 months.
I have.
Did you tell Sean Baker it was all because of him?
No.
No. You should have.
But I want to lose I want to lose 31 more or 30 more pounds.
Lose 80 pounds. You be string bean.
No.
All right. Well, I didn't really care about your weight loss program. I wanted to hear something good. Anyway.
That is good. And there's a lot of good things happening. And Jim, you're a part of it. And we're gonna whip this thing. We're gonna save this country.
Yeah, this is going to be a fun year, I think.
Yeah, me
All
too.
righty. Thanks,
All
everybody.
right. Thank you. Nothing comes out of a chicken's butt.